Please welcome Joan Lewis.
Thank you. Thank you, Greg. Now, Heather has me nervous about falling off the stage, which I will try not to do. So, thank you, Greg. Thanks to Lenny and everyone for being here. You know, we are here because we have a passion for innovation. We wouldn't be at IIeX if we were not. We will hear and we know about all kinds of glittering technology and powerful algorithms. And in many parts of market research, maybe not as much here at IIeX, but in many parts of the industry, there's a lot of debate about what that means for researchers. Will technology replace us? Will do-it-yourself research replace us? Is there any need for the profession of market research? After you hear people like Melanie and Sarah and Heather speak this morning, I would hope that it's clear that I don't think, and we should not think, that the profession of market research is disappearing like vanishing species. But there is a significant reinvention that we need and is well underway in many places. You can't listen to people who, like the ones who spoke this morning, without knowing that and without seeing great opportunity. So let's think about the journey of market research, because, you know, I started in the industry just slightly before this, not long before this, but a long time ago. And, you know, we thought we were pretty hot, right? But research at that point was essentially the art and science of getting good research done, getting good projects done. So we had very defined questions, and we had very specific ways to answer those questions, led by professional researchers. When I started in the industry, there was a statistician down the hall, there was a sampling expert downstairs, and a person in the building reviewed every questionnaire that I personally wrote with scissors and tape from previous questionnaires. Yes, I know that dates me, but some of you did that too, and some of you don't remember it. My husband and I were showing our 13-year-old a video of what a typewriter looked like yesterday, and I thought, I need to say that tomorrow. But we answered these questions in 6 to 12 weeks often, but the decisions were 6 to 12 weeks out, right? So when I started in market research, I knew my project numbers, I had files for questionnaires, and I did write tabs by hand. And it was a demanding, interesting profession, but it's not one I would do now. It's not any of the ways I would spend my time now. And I loved the quote this morning that I don't want to pay for people with doing hands, I want to pay them to think. So today, research is very different. You know, Will Smith has reinvented himself, why shouldn't we, right? I mean, he still looks pretty good. So I'm hoping that's the same for us. Now we have integrated questions. We have to address them with a variety of learning tools that change all the time. With the research itself, the engagement with human beings takes place with lots of different people in the lead at different times. There are researchers, there are psychologists, there are great marketers and product developers and engineers out there engaging with human beings. And we need the results yesterday because, as I think Sarah said earlier, they're not slowing down the decisions to wait 12 weeks for the tabs to come back. We're not sending things out to get them back. We have to answer for decisions that are happening now, and they're going to happen regardless. We don't have the luxury of the lead times. So in 1990, being a market researcher meant that we were experts in research methods and all of the attendant practices with being a good methodologist. Now we have to be experts in humans and how to learn about them. The goal of research when I began in the industry, and at least when a handful of you did, was reliability. I don't know if any of you did test-to-test reliability research, but I did. And the goal was to make sure the research turned out the way you thought it would. Now it's validity, the best way to answer the question today, even if it doesn't compare to the way we answered that question yesterday, and may not compare to how we answer the question tomorrow. And the goal of the research industry, what we prided ourselves on, was excellence in research. I would put forward a very different goal today, which is providing consumer and human-based answers that fuel growth. Because any of us in business today know that if our work is not related to growth growing the business of the companies we serve, we are not important and we are not necessary. When our business is related to growth, I can't say how much I love the phrase of set the damn table. Don't ever ask how to earn it. So when I started in the industry, the end of my project life for any research project ended with this. And I signed it on someone else's document. Today, if we're not ending or wrapping up our learning with something like this, not just what we learned, but what we think we need to do about it, and what we're going to do tomorrow, we're not doing a very good job. We also had a relatively short list of useful methods, and reviewing which way to go about learning a question, learning to answer a question, was an intellectual process, but it didn't have an endless set of possibilities. And there were largely standards around these kinds of things. And these are still very useful things to do for the most part, mostly. Maybe not the same way, but still mostly useful. Today, we have new things coming at us all the time, emerging ways to learn, some of them untested, some of them interesting and glittering, and we have people around us saying, why aren't you doing this? And it's hard to keep up. But is all of this more noise and distraction, or is it going to propel us somewhere better? I would argue we need it to propel us somewhere better. We have to embrace these forces, as was said earlier today, and we have to be out there expecting and finding the ways to learn more and to learn better and to learn faster. Good research has always been like a good car. You need a hypothesis. You need good questions that are clearly defined. You need a way to get there. You need answers that are grounded in business context. The Honda Civic is a really good car. It's going to get you everywhere. It is not the leading edge car that is going to attract people to the best ways to answer these questions. I'm a big car fan. Tesla not only gets you there, it gets you there a lot faster. It drives itself on the highway. It also learns your schedule and warms up or cools off the cockpit, anticipating your departure time. That is better, faster, more actionable, more compelling. That is taking an industry and reinventing it. And that's the way we have to think about our opportunity. The Honda Civic gets us there. What's going to get us there better, faster, and in a more complete way? We know lots of ways to do this. There's lots of good do-it-yourself research work out there. I do some work with Zappy Store. They've been really impressive, but there's lots of good companies doing this kind of work. People who are enlightened by technology and emerging brain science are moving us to ways to answer questions that tap into how actual people think and give more human ways for people to respond. Technology is putting us in people's lives, in the moment, so they can tell us what they're doing now and where they are doing it. If we are not taking advantage of these kinds of opportunities to connect, we're missing enormous new ways to learn about people. It's not an arm's length transaction all the time anymore, and it doesn't have to be. One company I work with is LRW. They've taken brain science and brought it into really practical ways to do surveys and given, through implicit identity mapping, a really simple way for consumers to tell us how strongly they feel about a brand. Something that kind of wraps up a lot of emotional response without over-rationalization. And we all know lots of companies who are doing this well. And these are just a few. A lot of them are here today. And a lot of manufacturer, advertiser side companies are looking for this. But yet there's still this feeling in the industry about some fear of the future or fear of what's going to happen to us as researchers. There's so much more to come. We're going to be talking to our appliances very soon, and I find myself compelled to say thank you to Alexa, but she doesn't answer me. But these are all the things that are coming. The data exhaust that's going to come from the Internet of Things is just at the beginning for us to start to understand where more and more data and insight is going to be available. So, what happens to us? How are we doing? Are we doing as well as Will Smith? Are we headed toward extinction or evolution? Are we going to stick with our goal of excellence in research? And I still hear people argue for that today. Or are we going to evolve to consumer-based answers that fuel growth? So Here are some professions, that some of which were pretty sophisticated professionals, that either are fading or don't exist much anymore. I don't know how many of you planned your last vacation with a travel agent. Probably not very many of us. Phone operators, even taxi drivers are probably changing, not just with Uber and Lyft, but with self-driving cars coming. You could argue that a lot of what market researchers do is going to be out there, to be assembled, kind of like travel. So what happens? Well, there are other industries that we could look at that have transformed a little differently. Today, there's a whole industry of elder care consultants. People who help you, anyone who has an aging parent probably know this, people who help you navigate insurance, care options, and other ways to support, transport, and care for older Americans or older people. And I have a 16-year-old. We have a college consultant. It's a business that I'm sure did not exist 20 years ago. And arguably, every bit of information you can get on college is available online. Why would you ever need a college consultant? Well, it's because every bit of information you can get is online. It's completely overwhelming. And the industry that I find most interesting to look at is the emerging model of medical care. Now, this is not everywhere by any means, but there's concierge medicine evolving, and in the role of even without concierge medicine, the role of the primary care provider is evolving too as the central point of how people manage their care. So there are industries that fade, but there are industries that emerge or transform as well. And which ones are we going to look at? Which place do we think we belong in? This is a study from the CMO Council in January. It says, while there is an overabundance of consumer data and analytics, marketers have yet to master what meteorologists and economists do best. Funnel this multiplicity of data into actionable insights to reliably anticipate and predict what's ahead and then prepare for it. So if this is where the CMO Council sees the state of the world of insights and prediction and anticipation, I think we're firmly in a space of needing informed professionals to provide this kind of integration, not in the situation of people getting everything they need at their fingertips. It's certainly not how I think any of our business partners feel when they're trying to figure out what information to source for decisions that are going to affect the business today and tomorrow. So I'd like to give you a slightly different paradigm to think about. Market research, when it began, one of the founders of the field was a guy named Melzer. Arguably, he might be the founder, but we're not entirely sure. He was the first guy at Procter & Gamble to do market research. He was someone who was an expert, who's an economist, an expert in commodities. He went out and talked to people. He created a whole paradigm of research that went door to door with field girls who wore gloves and pearls. But he was incredibly well regarded. He helped found a whole industry of actually listening and talking to people. The experience of the people who worked with him was terrific. He was trusted, well regarded. Everything he did was tailored. Everything that they could count on him all the time. And the practitioners that followed Doc Melzer were generalists, and they were really good, but informed only by their own experience. So limited by their own network and their own experiences. Research today arguably has lots of good outcomes, but it's hard to actually know when the outcomes are good or bad sometimes. There's lots of testing, and having spent most of my career on the client side or the manufacturer side, it's hard to tell sometimes which of the testing is most important. Some of that testing is driven by either researchers or our business partners just interested in the shiny new thing. Why aren't you doing EEG? Why aren't you doing something online? Why aren't you doing eye tracking? And the experience of our own research experience and our business partners is mixed at best. It's very confusing to put these pictures together. It's complex. There's a ton of generalists and specialists out there and lots of competition. So I think we'd argue that while there's lots of good people and innovation in the industry, the outcomes and the experiences are probably sub-optimized versus what is possible given all that's available to us today. emerging research models, some of the people who've spoken today and will speak over the course of this event, are the people who are going to be the integrators, the people who are going to be informed by a network of specialists, and often specialists who come and go, like the Sephora example of people who you bring in to integrate and you don't need all the time. And the experts are people, and often in fields that didn't exist 5 years ago. So not only are there ethnographers who have been valued for a long time, there's social media listening experts and people who are experts in brain science. And those are the people who are coming together to inform research today. When we have evidence-based research, we'll have better outcomes and we'll continue to get better. Now, this is an interesting hypothesis about where and how to evolve. Is it possible? And I'd like to give you a paradigm to look at when we think about the path of our evolution. The origins of research are very similar to the country doctor. Everybody could count on that person. They knew that person, highly tailored, but highly limited. And you might not know if your outcomes were very good or not because you didn't have a lot to compare it to. Most of our experience today is complicated in our medical environment today, with lots of things being thrown at us from lots of different specialists. But there is an emerging medicine model, and when you find the person who can do this for you, you know it. There are concierge doctors who have limited practices, or there are just the best-in-class GPs, the people who are the nexus of figuring out what the right tools are and who the right experts are. These are the people who we should look to. We have seen lots of industries transform, not all of them for the better. We can choose which industries we model ourselves after. And again, I'm a big fan of cars, that's one way to look at it, but deep professional industries are going through just as much change as we are and finding great ways to evolve and come out with more contribution, more trust, more integration across a complicated field. So I would like to think that we're going to do as well as Will Smith and some of these other people in reinventing ourselves over 20, 30, or even more years. And I think that market researchers are not a vanishing species, but one that resurges and reinvents and adapts, just like, as many of you know, the bald eagle has. So this is where I think we need to challenge ourselves to land and challenge people coming into the field to see themselves going forward and to see the integration role that they can play. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan.
I like the eagle.
I think we have time for one question. Anybody? Going once? Oh, here we go. Over here on the right.
You have to wait for the lights to flash a couple of times.
Thank you very much. Hopefully, can you hear this?
Could you turn this mic on?
Otherwise, oh, it sounds like we can. Excellent.
Good job.
Thank you very much indeed. I was very interested about integration, and I just wonder whether you think that's going to happen more from the client, bringing the integration, and how much should be coming from the research partners?
I think that is a pivotal question in our industry today. I have a strong view that the researcher, the expert in humans, is the source where that comes from best. Not because other people don't have to play a part in that integration. People who have to use our insights should be participants in that process. But the people who are the experts in humans, in behavior, psychology, research, are the people who can put the picture together and tell the story best. And we need to embrace that role because it is at least as important as the people who need to spend their time engineering, doing chemistry, creating advertising, and we need to, those roles should blur, but I don't think they displace the role of the person who's the integrator and the storyteller. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joan.
Good to see you.